He's an IIT graduate, and then he worked for IBM and Ernst and Young. Is that right?
That's right.
And then he gave up everything. Can you imagine? Just to start Readomania, something called Readomania.
That's right.
Which he's going to talk about. I'm going to get him to talk. Within a span of 18 months, he launched this in 2013. Within a span of 18 months, Readomania has launched 20 books. It's a publishing house, incidentally, and is a Limca holder for publishing India's first composite novel. I'm going to ask you about what a composite novel is. And this has a following of over 15,000 readers. And then he also holds a writing retreat called Faraway Lands. This very young lad here is Kaartikeya Bajpai. He's still in New York studying creative writing at Parsons, that's what he says. And he published a story at the age of 9. He's worked for several news magazines in India. And he's in news and he's here because he launched an online magazine called the Bombay Review, which is a bi-monthly literary magazine based out of New York City and Mumbai, and has readers in 120 countries. He won the 25 Under 25 Changemakers of India Award in writing, and has represented India's youth global leader in a 10-day conference in Macedonia. He has given 4 TEDx talks. Manjiri is a doctor in communication science, and she's a noted novelist. And here she's called the Agatha Christie of India because she's one of the few women mystery writers. And more importantly, she's the brain behind the Pune Literary Festival.
Sure.
What basically compelled you to quit your very cushy paying job to start an online publishing house? I mean, there must be some inner demons.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always called, it's a single word, it's called passion. When you are crazy for an idea and you think that's the best you can do, that's what is your calling, and hence it happened for me. So I think I was very close to literature. I've been reading a lot. I've been also writing once in a while, but I realized that new ideas and new concepts were required in the literature market. So I call that as a literature as an industry and the market for art. And being an MBA, being in the consulting business for so long, I thought I could be good to implement those. And with that intent, I started Readomania. Readomania is not just a publishing house, it's a literature company. When you are in a very well-paying job, it's very difficult to quit. So it has to be an instant on and off. You can't be thinking too much about it. If you think too much, you will never quit. So quitting was an overnight decision. And then I took 3 months to conceive what I had in my mind, put it down on paper, discuss, figure out the plans, and then launched in 2014 January. That's when we started off. The first launch that we did was an online platform called Readomania.com, which essentially is akin to YouTube for fiction, with the editorial glass wall. So anybody could come and just submit their poetry and the short stories, and our editorial team cleans it up and then publishes online. The next business that we launched was a publishing house, 2014 September, which is started with the intent of looking at new type of content. Short stories, number 1. Number 2, any new twist and turn. And number 3, new age authors, who are coming with a new concept, something or probably old wine in new bottle, either of these things. And then we started off with our events, which includes Faraway Rents, which is a literary workshop, and a creative outbound, and small format interactive festivals, which should be not more than 200 people, not more than 2 hours kind of elements, wherein we call in interesting people from the world of literature. Need not be authors, could be editors, could be marketeers, anybody and everybody, and started working on that. We recently started a art of book appreciation, as I very strongly feel
That's
that
really
Indian
nice,
audience need to be trained on how to appreciate good literature as well. So if you can have a wine appreciation, you can have a food appreciation, why not a book appreciation? So we started doing that. And finally, we are also launching literary products. So if you can use literature as a theme to conceive bags for women, or your interior decoration, or anything, you can take this theme forward, that will create products. So these are the 4 things we are in. Publishing being the mainstay, the most important part. So in today's world, it's about using content as one entity and figuring out various platforms for it. Online is one platform, physical is another platform. So there are platforms for it. You cannot have one versus the other. It is always one with the other. That's how it is.
Kaartikeya. I run the Bombay Review. I studied journalism as part of my undergrad, and it's a funny story. Like my whole family comes from a very strong science background. My dad is a nuclear scientist, so the pressure was like really strong to take up science. And in the end, we were like very casual about it. I wanted to do arts. He wanted me to do science. So we were like, "Chala, aapka bhi nahi mante hain. We won't take yours also. Let's go in the middle ground and let's take commerce." Like that's how casually I took commerce because I just wanted to like since I have to study something. And then after 12th, I did journalism or mass media, which is something I was really interested in.
Symbiosis, right?
Yeah, Symbiosis University in Pune. And this was something I was really interested in because I had learned or known that, as a writer, it's tough to, make a living completely. So I thought I'll study journalism, which is also to do with writing and something I'm passionate about, and, supplement that with my career in writing. And in Symbiosis, I was in my second year, about 2 years back, when I started the Bombay Review. Earlier, in the very beginning, it was very small, like there was a team of about 5 people. And we started publishing content, short fiction and poetry. In fact, I used to pay off illustrators with samosas. So one illustration would mean one samosa in the canteen. That's how I, give it back to the the illustrations team or anyone in the team who was working. From that day forward to till today, it's all a group of young volunteers, really, really passionate people who are into literature. And the entire community is itself very young. Like I'm the oldest at 21. And everyone,
So young.
yeah, everyone else is either 18 or 19 or 20, and these are passionate people, and they've been with us since the very beginning.
So how old were you when you launched this?
I was 19, 2 years back. It wasn't labeled as a magazine. It was like he goes online on a blog and does something. Like that's how it came to be known in my family. But right now they understand that how big it is or whatever it has become in those 2 years, and it spread from word of mouth, I would say, as well as current technological advancements like social media or whatever online. And in those 2 years, when we were just read in Pune, from there till today, when we are read in a lot of countries, we even do literary events in a bunch of countries. We have done mostly African countries because that's where the maximum amount of our readership comes from, which is very surprising. Like India is 6th or 7th in our list of countries who read the Bombay Review. The first is Nigeria.
Very interesting that you mentioned Africa. Even on our online platform, surprisingly, we see a lot of submission coming from African people, as well as the intent to write more. They have a lot of things to communicate to the world, I guess, and that's why Africans are coming on these platforms more often than not.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because they do not themselves have a lot of options or platforms to showcase their writing or poetry. So all of these new initiatives, which are especially coming out of South Asia, I would say, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, they are very interested in getting into that literary landscape rather than the Western literary landscape, because they have a stronger connect, they feel, that with these South Asian countries. And Somalia is a big reader and writer, and they're all writing in English, and you would not have believed it, right? You wouldn't think that Somalia is giving us such a strong readership. It was a great feeling to be in multiple countries doing free literary events. None of them are charged. We get the venue for free. We make a nice cute face, and we approach writers that please aajao, and they come, and it's all free. Like we don't charge anyone anything.
So where have you held these literary events in Africa?
Yeah, in Africa I did it in Nigeria and Somalia. Apart from that, I've done it in Pakistan, Bangladesh.
Somalia, what was the audience like? I mean, how many people turned up?
120 to 130, and which is like way bigger than what our audience has been in India. Like our Indian audience is about 30 to 40, 50 people at most. And Nigerians and Somalians, they're really good when attending because they don't have that space, And anyone who comes there and does something like that is looked at with much appreciation, and they are all interested in participating.
Are they youngsters?
Well, not really. Like our readership actually is between, like most of the readership comes from an age bracket of 30 to 45, 50. Even though the magazine is run by young people. And similarly in the events also, it's mostly people who are in the middle years that attend the events.
Manjiri, may we request you to talk of your literary fest? I know you're a very well-known writer, but the subject here is keeping literature alive. When did you launch the Pune Literary Festival, and how successful is this?
So we began in 2013. So in 2013, well, I'd been writing for a very long time, and it was a very natural transition for me to, go from being a writer to a Lit Fest organizer. And we realized that Pune is normally called the Oxford of the East, but we didn't have a literary festival. And almost every city in India seemed to have one.
Yeah, yeah.
So we said it's really high time. So we began this festival. We did it in an academic institute. We didn't have
When
any
did you launch
sponsors.
the-
2013.
3 years.
We didn't have any funds, so we put in our own funds because, like you, we were passionate. Many called us foolish, but we still did it. So 2013, we managed to kind of scrape through. We thought after the first year, now people will know that we've done a Lit Fest, so they'll come forward to help us. 2014 was even worse than 2013. For some reason, there were no sponsors, so we didn't lose hope. We again pitched in and we did a second festival which was bigger and better than the first. Luckily for us, third year, people started waking up in Pune, and then we had Vishwakarma Publications who came forward and came as a title sponsor. We had MIT, that's the college, who came in association. What we did was we moved out of MIT, which was our earlier, like you have a school here, we were doing it in a college. So the branding became like a college festival, so people weren't coming forward. So we realized this, so we moved out of MIT into a neutral premise, and there we got a title sponsor. Third year was better, fourth year became even better, fifth year we're planning in a very big way.
Okay, since we're on the subject of literary festivals, is this a way of, there was nothing till Jaipur started 10 years ago. They were celebrating their 10th anniversary. Are literary festivals a way of getting the crowds back, audiences back into reading?
Well, I think
Books.
a literary festival is very important for an author because it's a place where they can meet their readers, very importantly, because where else can you meet where authors meet their readers? That's number one. Number two, authors also do a lot of networking. And I feel it's because suppose if I want to get a book published, if there's an aspiring author, he can meet a publisher right there, or he can meet another author who would probably help him. So this whole networking that happens in a Lit Fest is extremely important.
No, apart from the networking,
Yeah.
I'm talking of the audience, the general lay audience.
So
Are these people, showing interest again in books? Because
So-
there's so many other distractions nowadays.
yes, they do, because in the first year we had 1,000 as an audience, and the fourth year we had 11,000 footfall. So it depends on what publicity you do.
So literature festivals have a very unique position in today's world. See, when it started off, people would come and meet their icons. You would go and meet Ruskin Bond, Vikram Seth, and the likes of those celebrity authors live. And that's the only way they can interact with them. As we move forward from those celebrity authors and those icons, it has helped the emerging authors in a big way, because with them, these people also get equal amount of visibility. Consider this a kind of a shared resource. When marketing happens for an author has to create these platforms on their own individually, where people can go and meet them and know more about them. Whereas a festival like the PILF is creating a platform and giving it to you to use it to access people who are already there. So hence it has played a very good role in opening up new authors and giving them a platform for visibility. However, what has also happened is that, as she rightly said, that because there are too many of them happening, and more so people have realized this is the way of minting money, in some cases it is also diluting the brand of festivals. Hence you would also see a lot of national media talks about festivals in a very sarcastically derogatory way, wherein they say, oh, another one is cropped up, which is not the case. The more the merrier for us, actually.
Well, I don't think that, it's a bad thing to just be at a literary festival just for the heck of it. I mean, it is pulling in a huge number of people, and these people, if they have not read a book before, and when they go to a literary festival and they see the kind of discussions that are happening, and then they look up the bios, or get inspired to read the book after the festival as well, which is a very, very positive thing. It might not happen with like all the people who are in that particular session or who are attending it, but it does have a positive effect, I feel. It's more positive than it's negative. The more the number of literary festivals, like he said, the better it is.
Definitely there is a change, because I feel, personally I felt that to go to, suppose XYZ is attending Jaipur Lit Fest, and I can't get up from Pune and go and attend it there. But if XYZ comes to Pune, definitely I get this whole people who are interested in going to Jaipur coming to the Pune Lit Fest. So it's actually an opportunity for people who want to attend Lit Fest to have one in their own city. So I think it definitely encourages readers to come and attend, and it definitely has pulled in huge crowds, and it definitely has helped even aspiring authors, to be a part of this Lit Fest.
But literary festivals also have to have the right mix of Bollywood and Tollywood and dance, drama, well-known celebrities.
Yeah, like we were just talking, writers on their own do not pull crowds. That's the honest reality of today. So if nobody knows Manjiri Prabhu, I will have to get... No, no, I'm just saying, if I go to a Lit Fest and people don't know me, then I need somebody along with me who's a bigger celebrity to pull the crowd to listen to him, then they listen to me. So that is why in every Lit Fest, even to pull the sponsors and even to pull the crowds, you have to have some big names. And then along with that, you push in all the people you want to push in to promote them and give them a platform. That's a smart thing. That's a smart thing to do.
You know what Kartikeya was saying is very interesting. I call it the Chetan Bhagat effect. Chetan Bhagat got a lot more people to visit a bookstore and pick up a book, and in turn also look at the other books around them. So, that's what these festivals do. You enter with a particular image in mind and then end up looking left, right, and then figuring out some new stuff to read as well. So that's what it's done.
So both of you are into online publishing. So you're saying the form of literature has changed, will change, because now bookstores are closing, publishing houses are crying out, and our own magazines are all shutting down.
Well,
So is this a new model, probably what the future is going to be like? I mean, reading per se will not die, but the form we read will change.
Well, there's something very interesting happening in India actually. Everywhere else in the West, the publishing industry is going down. Like, it's actually on a negative decline. Whereas in India, it's actually growing, if I'm not wrong, at about 15 to 20%, the publishing industry as a whole. And it's supposed to grow for another 10 to 20 years, like maybe 30 years. Now, that's a very positive thing, but I do agree that, the traditional form of literature is changing to to a huge extent today. Like, one of the biggest new upcoming startups, I would say, which have happened online is this company called the Terribly Tiny Tales. If you guys know about it, its short form is TTT. What they do is they have 3-sentence short stories, or a full story in 3 sentences or 2 sentences, and people are reading them a lot. Like, I know a figure actually, like each post that goes up, if it has a sponsor, they charge 70 lakhs for that per post. If that's the amount of revenue they can generate, it means that people are reading it, people are lapping it up.
So is it like a regular story or like Twitter?
It is like Twitter.
Like Twitter.
That's hardly literature.
It's not, but people are reading that, and when they read that, they try to write something after that, which is not necessarily a 2 or 3 sentence story. Like, after reading something like that, they try to, do poetry as well or something else.
Personally, I feel there are more writers than readers today.
I think so too
So
sometimes.
everyone is a writer, which is not a bad thing, but I wish they would also read along with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the new breed of writers writes a lot, reads less. Having said that, in Pune we have this bookstore called the Crossword Bookstores, which is opening store after store. We have at least, I think, 18 branches only in Pune. And it's not, all the other stuff, it's mostly books. And if you do a launch at Crossword Bookstore, it's a huge thing. And people do turn up. So the fact that, the thought that bookstores are closing and online is coming up in a big way, I think online is coming up in a big way, but books are not necessarily going out. The traditional books.
Well, I hope
That's
they don't.
very hopeful.
But I think, let's be realistic. Most bookstores are closing. Here they've turned into toy stores and they sell music. Even music, I think nobody buys now. So magazines are struggling to, newspapers are struggling to be alive.
See, the revenue models have changed, the cost economics have changed. If you do not go with the times, you will have to either shut down or be out of the business. Given case in point example of Crossword, if you look at the revenue model, they have started charging for everything they give in the bookstore. Book revenue probably is 50-60% of their revenues.
Coffee and stuff like that?
No, they're charging for the marketing and distribution, So if an author has to go and display a book in a particular way in the store, you shell money. If you need rack space, you give money. So those are revenue streams which have come out.
Fair enough.
Which is fair enough, because you're giving them space out of the clutter. So those are the people who survive, who've innovated the model, found new ways of pulling money. See, as much as we say, and as Kartikeya gave out the number, the correction to that, Indian industry is growing as a whole. Publishing as a whole includes trade, which is fiction as we all know it, includes educational, includes academic, includes non-fiction. The rate at which trade, which is fiction, is growing is far, far lesser than the others. And in that rate, the majority of the growth comes from books published via self-publishing media. Okay?
So you're counting that also.
Which gives you volumes in number of books published. Okay? Revenue-wise, it's still not giving you anything. That's the reality. However, still, good content in India is picking up and lapping up very fast. Okay? On your primary question, it is no more the question of A versus B, online versus offline. It's a combination of both. On the second part, India is growing, but selectively. Okay? And on the third part, bookstores are closing up, but new models are coming out, wherein you have found newer models of distribution and visibility. Now, the old bomb and pop store is no more existing because the newer generations don't like shabby stores. They don't want to go and spend time searching for a book. There will be a handful of people. Those handful of people cannot give the bookstores revenue enough to sustain. Now what they want, people want is swanky stores, AC environment, blah, blah, blah. To keep that, you need to also increase the revenue means, So people who are doing that are surviving. Om is another example in North. Om bookstores,
Yeah,
Sapna in South, Odyssey in Chennai, Starmark in Chennai and Calcutta. These stores are slowly, in fact, Himalaya and Walden in Hyderabad, those stores are also growing. So they've not closed down because they have figured out the sweet spot and doing so rightfully.
Unfortunately, I'm not talking of the commerce of it. We need to talk of how is literature alive. I mean, some of this self-help books, that is not literature, or when you publish.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So in literature also, that's what I was telling you.
Yeah,
it's a very niche segment, but it's growing.
Yeah, new models. I do agree with everything Dipankar said. A lot of these young people who want to go to bookstores are also looking to spend some time there with a cup of coffee today. And that cup of coffee is actually like maybe $150. So that's one form of revenue model for the bookstore. Or there are poetry slams in these bookstores nowadays, which churn out a huge revenue for the cafe inside them. That's how we approach bookstores. Like if we go to Crossword and ask them to give us the venue for free to conduct a literary event, they say no. But then we say that 40 young people are going to come. They'll buy at least 20 cups of coffee. So you will get some kind of extra revenue from that, and then they agree. Otherwise, they don't. So there are newer models. Of course, there are VCDs. Like I once talked about, actually Amazon is an online store, but the example is similar. Like when Amazon, or actually let's talk about Flipkart. When Flipkart started, it was just books. And then, it stepped down on the left side when there are columns or tabs of what all you can buy. There was books, and then there was music. Now books keeps going down. Yeah, and clothes and refrigerators and headphones and whatnot. Like you can buy flowers on Flipkart now. So books have gone down in that sense, but still it survives, right? Because of this new model they have picked up, that they'll sell everything, and books do not generate the same kind of revenue as something like a refrigerator or a huge stereo system would. But having that also keeps the books in the website, right? So they do manage to sustain, and whichever newer bookstores are coming out, these are chain bookstores. So what you were talking about, the bookstores dying, are actually individual bookstores which are dusty and which are romantic, and you go there for the nostalgic factor. But the ones today are swanky, and these are chains, and it's a huge store, like 3 floors, 4 floors.
Yeah, but as a literature lover, I'm not looking for swank. I want a Shakespeare and Company or Strand Bookshop in New York.
Yeah.
I want very true book lover.
So the number of people who are like you, I am like that, is reducing.
I don't want a swank.
Is reducing. Yeah. So I agree. Even I don't go for the air conditioning, but I do understand that 80% of the people today go there for that. The population or the number of people who are like us, who are just going there because we genuinely want to browse and pick up a book, read the blurb. That's there. That's but a small segment. And bookstores are not there to promote books. They're there to make money.
On a different note, I want to say, if you really want to promote literature and keep it alive, you have to empower the writer. In the sense, if an aspiring author wants to write a book, First, support from the family. Okay, no pressure of earning money. You have to make him, make him realize his dream any which way possible. Second thing is, you have to promote buying of books, even in the family and even in the society and community. Thirdly, that writer has to have a platform to promote the book, which is a space for lit fests. And fourthly, I think a writer would really be empowered when he doesn't need a celebrity to launch his book. That, I would say, is, empowerment. And I think all this can be done with the help of book clubs, from home, and everything. I think that would keep literature alive.
But as a culture, you think we've lost this love for books? Because when we were younger, there were no lit fests and no celebrity coming to launch. Yeah, so have we lost that whole thing?
No, it's not lost. It's not, definitely not lost. And if we...
You're not of India, let's talk.
I'm not in India, definitely. Otherwise, a new age house like Readomania would have closed in the second, third month with no sales. But we are there. We survived for 3 years, which means it's not lost. One very interesting concept I wanted to share with you. Like you said, that you would want to go and idolize and romanticize in old books. For example, I hear that from a lot of people. Yeah, absolutely. I genuinely know of people who feel very happy browsing Amazon to search for a book and buy it there. So that entire thing has been shifted online now. So that's a thing.
The first chapter.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So that experience has been also kind of mirrored online, which is available. What I also want to say right now, what's happening in India, as she rightly said, you have too many writers. Okay, why is that happening? Now, a lot of people in India have, okay, let me put it the other way around. I genuinely feel as a publisher that to write good content, you need to either have gone through experiences or you have heard experiences and accumulated that. It's like filling up a pot before you empty it into a book. Okay, more often than not, people today want to write entertainers, okay, which are simpler, faster, maybe quick reads to be finished in one flat hour. If you're looking at those kind of reads, which may not be classical or eternal literature, that's where we are going. Okay, good or bad, I don't know. Okay, but that's where we're heading to, where the commercial literature, commercial books is picking up big way. However, having said that, mid-list, which is somewhere between literary fiction and commercial, is also got a lot of scope in India, because that's where the true love lies. Because we are a nation of aspiring people. We're well educated, we have got a grasp of multiple languages, we have got money, and all the basic needs have been fulfilled. We now look at something which is aspirational. Literature is aspirational for you. You start reading probably Chetan Bhagat or an Amish, and you graduate further and further.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's what they do. Slowly and steadily they move forward. And you have to help those people develop that taste. Okay, as she rightly said, have book clubs discussing good literature. Reflect back on what you read and what you take back from the books.
Yeah, I think the book clubs element is very important today in today's world, because it was very prevalent in the 80s and 90s, and even in the books you used to read. If any of you remember, like I know I'm young, but Secret 7 used to have these sheds, and they meet there and they have their dog and they have like cupcakes and their mother sends lemonades and they're discussing books, and it's such a warm feeling. So it used to be there in the 80s and 90s when people used to meet together on a Sunday afternoon, lazy Sunday afternoon, and discuss whatever books they were reading. I know a lot of book clubs which read Arundhati's Roy. Like there was a whole movement when it came out, when she won the Booker. Today it is going down to some extent, which is why I and like all of us try to have these workshops and literary events, smaller scale, not exactly as big as a festival, but also smaller scale, at least in my case, smaller scale events where we get a good writer and we ask them to talk about writing, and the audience is all full of aspiring writers and readers and everyone, and they really enjoy the compactness and small scale quality of this event. They get to interact, and it's just 2 hours and people sit there and talk and have chai. It's very warm and small, which is, I try to do that a lot. Like I have done about 30 such events in India and abroad, and they are the most loved aspect of the magazine, actually, I would say.
Increasing the personal interaction that you have one-to-one, that's very important and key these days.
No, since you mentioned Enid Blyton, I just want to share something that I was brought up on a staple diet of Enid Blyton, and I loved her books so much that I started writing at the age of 7. And when I read her books, I felt that these books had to be written by me. So I thought I was Enid Blyton reborn. So what I'm saying is when I started reading at such a young age and the influence it had on me, that it kept the love of literature alive till right now. So I think tackling children, for a long living literature atmosphere in the world is very important. You have to expose them to books, you have to get them to read, you have to get them to love books, I think.
Just one quick thing. My first book, if it can be called that, like it hasn't come out in the market, like something I wrote for myself was around when I was around 12. And I loved Anne Blyton so much. It was called The Thrilling 3 because Famous 5 is done, Secret 7 is done, what do you have? So I came up with The Thrilling 3. I was like, I wrote about 60, 70 pages of it. And gave it to my dad and he printed like 50 copies of it from his office because, Sarkari printer. So, and I distributed it to friends and everyone. And it was, just on a normal, exactly. And it's not published or anything, but I gave it to friends and they enjoyed it to some extent. Like, it was full of grammatical errors. I still have the first copy in which I hand wrote it. Then I cut the pages to make it look like a book. And I keep that even today.
See, literature, rather any art form is very subjective, Fortunately or unfortunately, good or bad, a generation in India has started off reading a different kind of literature, which they think is literature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, when they grow up, and for them, that's English. Okay. So their ability to absorb something else in a different way becomes equally more difficult, is what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. So in our
How do we tell them there is something else? They've not been exposed to it like you and I have.
Yes.
So,
So what happens? So that's the reason mid-list in India plays a very important role. So mid-list as a category is not literary fiction and it's not commercial as well. What it does is that it is using clean, good English, but very racy, fast, interesting plots.
Name something.
All our books, 90% of our books in India are in mid-list category, okay? Barring the literary authors, So most of it is in that category. In fact, a lot of our books, barring a few, I think Radhika's book is literary fiction, barring that, our entire list is mid-list, So what it does is that it helps the reader move from the lower to a higher in one dimension, which is language, yet keeps the other dimension alive, which gives you possibility of graduating to the next dimension and the next move. So that's a slow progress that you do. If you don't do and directly give them Arundhati Roy, they'll be all lost because they would not have understood the nuance of slow reading. They're always in the fast reading mode right now. And age also has to do a lot of it, These days, unless you are a literature student or you've also got exposed to something which is more nuanced, you would tend to read something which is very fast. That's what, in fact, Juggernaut as a platform was also built on this mode. People want quick reads, faster reads, whether it's short story or fast reads. The assumption is that people don't have time. Okay? So as and when they start slowing down and settling down in life, the reading preferences also change. So even when you look at the sales pattern, you will clearly see that happening, Commercial, the younger lot is far more bigger. In non-commercial, mid-list and literary, the older lot is far more bigger. Okay? Young and old divide the 25. It's not anything else. Yes. So that's what the point is.
English readership we are missing because there is a growing regional readership. I do know that there are fabulous Tamil authors and there are publications like New Horizon. They're bringing out and they're selling. So I think we are at a stage where there is a divide between English literature and regional literature. How we can bridge them, whether we should bridge them, I don't have the answers.
I just want to answer this point, ma'am. It's a very relevant point. I think we're discussing only about the English language part here. We're all, okay? So, but in regional is very important because the depth that we have in regional is far, far higher because that comes with a lot of experience. And that translation is happening in a big way. All publishing houses, mind you, all of them are investing in translations because they've figured out that there's a lot of money to be made in translations right now. So left, right, center, all languages, all regions are looking at translations. So that's going to be the big market, and next 2 years you will see a lot more translations coming out in the market.
I'll just add to this quickly. Have you heard of Surendra Mohan Pathak? He's a mystery Hindi author. He's published 300 books. How many people know him? Oh, I'm glad, because when his book comes out, thousands of copies get sold within a month. So Hindi, regional literature, I don't think is dead by any long way. But yes, so when he comes to LitFest, he makes it a point to bridge this gap between English and Hindi or regional language.
It's not a question, ma'am. I'm a mother of young children. What I do to promote books is I insist that my children give to their friends during birthdays a book. But my kids say, ma'am, mama, it's not a cool thing. They don't like it. They're not excited when they open it. I tell them even if it sits in the bookshelf, it's fine. Later in the, 2 years later, they may read it.
In terms of literature, how do we divide real literature, good literature? How do we bridge the divide, the real vast divide between the so-called unread or not so well-read authors and the very well-read authors?
Yes, so that's exactly what we do at the Pune Lit Fest. We get in debut authors, we get in authors who are really good authors but are not widely publicized. We get in all kinds of authors. We have a balance so that they get a platform to meet their readers and to publicize themselves. That is at least what we do at Pune Lit Fest.
I'll give you a live example. We have Radhika Mairat, the praised debut author, sitting there from Readomania again. Her book was launched 6 months ago. Published at Readomania. Her book was doing just about average. And she won a Muse India award for the best literary debut fiction. It just changed the volumes overnight. So that's how you bridge the gap. You recognize good literature, you recognize good books, and that's how it starts moving faster.
Thank you. I'm a literature professor, currently heading a central university. And it's very heartening to see the response of all of you regarding publishing and lit fests. The flip side of this upsurge in literary festivals is curiously and paradoxically the decline of the English departments, literature departments. What will be the advice of all of you to revitalize the English department with regard to the promotion of literature?
Why do you say the decline of the department? I mean, the English department?
Let me explain. When I was growing up in the 70s and I had joined a premier department in this very city itself, we had heard of Barry John, for example, in Delhi University, and his contribution to performance, for example. And in Pune University, J. Patil, for example, he was there. In Hyderabad, we have Isaac Sequeira and Dramatic Circle of Hyderabad. So those are the examples that I have in mind. Today, when we look around, and I happen to be the Vice Chancellor of a Central University, I find that the kind of interest and zest that you people have demonstrated, and the youngest panel member, I would love to have 3 of you in my university, for example, trying to energize and revitalize the English departments and the literature departments. So from that point of view, I think it's a learning experience for somebody like me. Please tell us how best we can revitalize the literature departments in the university.
Well, you actually answered your own question. I have thought about that too before. A lot of universities before, their English department had good professors, but who were not writers themselves. They were scholars.